Hello everyone, it's Raylene Bartlett from RTO Doctor, and tonight I'm coming to speak to you with Joanne Cornelius, who has very generously donated her time to the Enough is Enough clause. She has some really important information that she wants to share with everyone today, and we're going to do it via a few questions and answers, and she's just going to take us through a little bit of a journey that she's had that she feels that everybody needs to know about in relation to Enough is Enough. So we're sitting in the Duxton Hotel in Perth in Western Australia, and we've just had a lovely dinner. And Joanne, tell us why you want to talk to us today.
Well, I own a small RTO in Victoria, predominantly a TAE RTO, and I've recently been through the process of going through an audit with ASQA and moving through an audit through to the AAT process and actually through to hearing. And with a result at the end that I am still an RTO running.
Fantastic.
So yeah.
And I understand it was not an easy journey for you, and just so that everyone knows, we have actually spoken about what we can and can't say, and we definitely don't want to get Joanne into any potential trouble here, so we've had a little bit of a chat beforehand. If you've got some questions that you would like to ask and we can't answer them, actually we might not even be able to see them because we're going by my phone. But if there are questions that we can't see, please put them in the comments, and we promise to get back to you if we can, in terms of if it's information that we are able legally to provide you with after the interview. So we've got a set of questions here, or topics that we want to talk about. But one of the first things that Joanne was really passionate about letting everybody know in relation to what she went through was what providers can and can't do, what ASQA can and can't do, what your rights and responsibilities are when going through this process, because like us, Joanne feels very strongly that a lot of providers out there are not aware of what their rights and obligations and responsibilities are, what they can and can't do, and how to best protect themselves in these types of situations. So Joanne, tell us.
So one of the things that I highly recommend is that if you're at that audit process and you're feeling that there may actually be an issue with the audit, or not quite sure that the audit is going down the right pathway, you have the right to the Freedom of Information Act, and it is the first step that you would actually take in regards to finding out who your auditor is. Now, going down that path of finding out their qualifications, and if in fact they are legally qualified to actually carry out your audit. You may actually be very surprised at information that comes back from that. So finding that out, and then also understanding that sometimes, and we have heard of these practices recently, where auditors are just knocking on doors and saying, oh, we would like to come in and visit. However, RTOs don't know what they can and cannot do in regards to that, and they're not aware of the implications of if they actually allow an auditor to come in. So they need to understand that auditor has to either come in under Section 67, I think it is, isn't it? I can't remember
off the top of my head.
There is a number.
It will be on the audit verification form.
Yeah.
If the box is ticked for compliance monitoring audit, it will be ticked.
If you feel that you're not able to have that person walk in off the street, you have the right to actually get them to go and get a warrant. And if they do have to go and get a warrant, they have to actually have a very substantial reason to actually get that warrant signed off. So that can be more in your best interest than not doing anything at all. So letting your staff know about what they should and shouldn't do if someone walks in and says they're ASQA, especially the front staff, because if they're invited in by your staff, that could be seen as an invitation in. So just be aware of that.
Okay, great. And in terms of the Freedom of Information Act, I know you mentioned that briefly there. What are some of the things that you were able to obtain through the Freedom of Information Act that were really beneficial in helping you to get through your case and everything that you had to do?
So the first thing was auditors' qualifications. That was a very important point, to find out that if auditors were not qualified, what you could actually do in that regards. But also, if you felt that you were told that a process was happening, or there was a moderation process that happened and everything like that, ask the question, well, can we have a look at that moderation process, please, and understand what that process is. And the ASQA, complaints team are actually a separate division, so they do come through with information that can actually be of benefit to you.
Great. And tell us about the audit process, because I know the audit process was a little bit problematic for you. There were issues to do with risk profiling and student surveys in particular that you discovered.
Yeah, so from under the Freedom of Information Act, I found out about whether the RTO had any complaints. There were none. Were there any other information that would be a reason why ASQA was dragging the tail in certain areas? There was nothing of substance that would actually cause us to be in a position where we would be scrutinised in the way that we were.
And just to clarify, sorry to interrupt, your attendance or need to go to the AAT was because it started out because you had applied for the TAE 40116 transition. And what happened? Did it get rejected and the RTO cancelled?
Yep.
What got you there?
3 months before the train-out period, ASQA turned around and rejected the rectification report, and were going to close the RTO down. I had no choice but to go to the AAT, because closing the RTO down didn't just mean that I had no staff, I had to put staff off or anything like that. Closing the RTO down meant that I personally, as a fit and proper person, would no longer be able to work in the industry in any shape or form other than in a trainer role. So I wouldn't be able to take on any compliance areas or management areas that I had been carrying out for the last 12 years.
And that was really important to you, not just as an RTO owner, to be able to maintain your fit and proper person, but I understand you also had quite a career once upon a time with the Commonwealth Government yourself.
Yeah.
And so the damage to you personally by having such a negative finding on your fit and proper person would have been quite significant and critical to your future career options, I would imagine.
Absolutely. It would have limited, in the area of the career that I'd been working in for the last 12 years and had not only worked in, actually completed major studies. I went through the Masters in Professional Education and Training Qualifications. I put a lot of time and effort into this career, and I'm very passionate about training and assessment. I started in the training and assessment sector in the 80s as a 16-year-old.
Wow.
As a mechanic, and I really believe that it is a fabulous industry, and that we need more people in the industry, especially in areas of that training sector that have been there and can actually provide some detailed training within the sector that relates to those people, and have someone that you can relate to when you're actually training.
Absolutely. What was the next thing on our list? And please, if you are